So Alexey brought up the point that all these other hackathons are popping up, and it's like this huge trend, and it's definitely like outpacing like increasing demand. But something else, another trend that I've noticed is that a lot of companies are increasing their budgets for this. Do you think that those budgets can increase fast enough, or where do you think that is?
It's a great question. I mean, the budgets have been increasing. The bottleneck is just still like how many new grads get hired, like how much of that is interesting. I think the budgets are going to keep increasing, but at the end of the day, like we're currently like we're some part of some company. We're currently some part of some recruiting company's budget, right? So they're certainly going up, but the bottleneck we're going to hit is just like how much do they actually pay for recruiting, and how much of them actually care about new grad recruiting, and how many of them actually like prioritize hackers versus like computer scientists who are super good at like some academic thing.
Yeah, there has to be decreasing marginal returns on more hackathons. Yeah, at the end of the day.
In terms of like raising money and cold calling people, since it seems like that was a theme, have you guys played around with different types of email like strategies? Like if you go like, hi, my name is, or if you start with like a picture, or you start with like different things.
Yeah, we haven't A/B tested heavily, that kind of stuff. I think that it's hard to get meaningful statistics on that until you're doing it at huge scale, just because there are so many smaller variables, especially like a lot of the companies we've emailed before and things like that. But once you're doing larger scale cold emailing strategies, then I would definitely start playing around with that stuff, and you're definitely gonna see large benefits.
Do you like change your email throughout the year, I guess? Like,
we will make them more urgent throughout the year as we get closer to the hackathon, and sometimes that will get responses, especially with companies that we believe for some reason should give us money, but they haven't responded yet to our email. Mm-hmm. You just like make it more urgent, and like if you don't get in the next week, it's going to close. You're not going to be in the shirts, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, actually, our emails have changed, but just as we found them to be more effective, they've actually gotten shorter and shorter. So we found that to be more effective as well.
I also like doing like I find when the tone is too formal, I think it kind of gets dismissed as spam by some companies when it comes through. And if you strike a balance between friendly and formal, it's more likely to pass through their like initial filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of my question is, at UT, there's a lot of restrictions on our sponsorships. We can't call them sponsors. They're corporate supporters. We can't have their logos. They can't bring large banners. We can't have their logos like shirts, signs, nothing. We can't do any of that. And, you know, I honestly like wonder how much it even matters to them that the logos are on the back of the shirts. I mean, we had to just put plain text names instead, since we kind of told them we were going to somehow get them on the shirt. But how much do y'all think it really matters that large banners are nice and things, but I mean, we just can't do it.
I don't think logos on the shirt really matter at the end of the day for most companies.
But I just mean logos across the board.
I don't think logos anywhere. Can you put them on your website?
That, technically no, but we made them really small and begged. Yeah. Basically, and they let us.
I don't think it matters too much, as long as you have their names on your website, you link to them. The one thing I think companies would worry about, Rob was alluding to this earlier, like visibility during the hackathon. So being able to put a banner, like a tablecloth on their table that says Twilio.
Can do that.
I think that's one of the bigger sticking points, and I would argue for that simply on the merit of like students being able to find help for their hack. I don't know, like I guess you might have bigger university-wide problems, but I think when it's not just about like publicity and it's more just about locating where people from a company are. Like, what do your career fairs do?
That's a whole different, like they have a special relationship with the college, so they get, work with them and stuff like that. It's different than when students are going out and fundraising. And
so something I would say, just from my experience with BidCamp, is that because the university is so involved with that at that level, that it's key. So he was talking about the sponsor side, but it's key to also find on the university side the decision makers for those policies, right? So policies can always change, and I know it's difficult when you have like such a huge institution, but yeah, that's just something to consider.
I mean, if names are okay, just print up banners with the names on it.
Yeah,
huge,
that's
right?
what we ended. Like, our signs were just names.
And then sponsor would be fine with it. I don't think there would be a big problem.
So I'd really love to hear from some of the actual sponsors that are here about that. How much do you care about being on the back of the shirt? DJ, for example.
I like to be on the t-shirt. I should say as me personally, I like t-shirts.
DJ likes t-shirts.
So put Anderson Horowitz logo on the back of your shirts.
be careful about your sponsors' logos. You got to get the right typeface, or they're like PR people are going to get mad at them.
That's
and
actually true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
So McHacks is in 3 weeks, and we're kind of just wondering what like hackathons that are really good at sponsorship are doing in terms of manipulating their sponsorship package, or like other things they're offering to like kind of for that last sponsorship push.
I don't know to what degree you've been flexible with your sponsorship packages, but if you haven't been, down to the wire you should be. I mean, have you been flexible with them?
Yeah, I mean, like we kind of just do like custom packages for most people, but like once you've got T-shirts printed, do you guys make new packages or like?
Yeah,
has to change?
I wouldn't bump much off for T-shirts. I don't think that's. I mean, I think it's certainly a factor to Dave's point, but I doubt it will make or break it for the average sponsor. Yeah, it's hard. Look into local companies willing to donate food. This is what one thing MIT did was when it got down to the wire and they had a problem accepting monetary sponsorships just because of, I don't know, their issues. They started just looking for food donations from food companies. And that's like food is a big cost, for example.
Hey guys, I'm from Hackett Brown. Just a couple of points to share about sponsorship. So this was our first year, and a couple of things we learned in finding sponsors. One thing you can do is look at the websites of other hackathons. So we found that Venmo was a huge sponsor for a lot of hackathons. We found an alum there from Brown, and we just emailed him, and they ended up being one of our first sponsors. And another thing you can do to find alumni who've founded companies is you can use Facebook's graph search. People who went to my university and work as founder, that got us a few sponsors too.
That's definitely good.
People who went to my university and work as founder.
Also, AngelList will give you some too.
Yeah, that can too. And just a question to Mackenzie, you were saying something about universities wanting to route funding through their means for some reason. We didn't catch that. Can you repeat? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I was just saying how, at least at the University of Maryland, and I know at least at some other hackathons that some other people that I talked to, the university really pushed, if you are going to accept funds for this, do it through our accounts. And the explanation for that is because universities get ranking points in like U.S. News and World Report, for example, based on a calculation that measures participation that does not measure dollars raised. So they don't care what it is that you are giving to the university for. They just care that you are giving at some level to the university, and that can be for literally anything that's going on, including a hackathon. And that's the reason why they want to wire the money through the university.
Out of curiosity, how do you do your funding right? Like, where is your funding going through right now? Is it through your school or through some other source?
It's going through our school.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the computer science department helps us.
Hi, I was wondering what you all think is a good timeline to start fundraising for money, especially like taking into consideration about like companies like reaching the end of year budget, and also like if you have 2 hackathons in a year, like especially you just had your fall hackathon, like right afterwards, are you gonna like immediately start like fundraising for your spring hackathon?
Yes. Yeah. So I've found that there are always like 2 or 3 out of like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10% of sponsors will say, yeah, we only budgeted for one of your events this year. We'll see you again, in the fall or the spring, whatever the next year, a year for it is. Most companies, based on the recruiting cycles, are okay with it. Oftentimes they'll be interested in, this is changing now, but oftentimes, at least they used to be interested in full-times for the fall and internships for the spring. More and more internships are moving towards the fall, I think. And also all the recruiting, not like the recruiting dollars, everything besides recruiting dollars will generally be more interested year-round. I don't know, I haven't found it to be too much of a problem, but there's always a couple companies that will say no, and yeah, it's like, okay.
Something we tried to do at PennApps like years ago, and it didn't work then, but I think it'll work now, is raising for 2 events at once. So right in the summer, you can raise for your fall event, and then it's winter break, and you're like, oh, we have to like close all this money for our like spring event, especially if it's like early in the season, and it's a nightmare, right? So, but you actually have time in the summer because like a whole bunch of you guys are out here and like either in New York or in the Valley doing internships. So you can like go meet with sponsors. It's just like a much happier time to do it. So one idea is if you sponsor both our fall and our spring event, you get 20% off or whatever it is. Just like let's lock it down now.
Yeah, that's a great point. Two things I'd like to add on about that. One is lots of companies do year-long all companies do year-long budgets. So if you catch them at the right point, they love to actually commit to both events at once. Very happy to that. We've had, one or two sponsors do it like at their request before, and we should probably start doing that. And the other point is that you should be careful about your event changing size though. If you do it too much and your event gets much bigger, you're gonna run into money issues. But as long as you're confident of what scale you're looking at for the next semester, I would definitely look into that option.
And just some advice quickly going off of that. I know we all want to break, but October, November is when a lot of big companies lock up their budgets for the next quarter, like next 2 or 3 quarters, or even the full year. So that's a good time to be in talks because that's when they're thinking about their budget. And it's much easier for companies to be able to sponsor you if they can write it into a line item in their budget than if they have to work out of discretionary funds later in the year.
Awesome. Let's give a big round of applause for all of our speakers.